Hello to all of you. I hope that you are having a beautiful day today. We have an encouraging word for you, and it comes from Luke chapter 13 and verse 12. Luke 13:12 says, "But when Jesus saw her, he called her to him and said to her, 'Woman, you are loosed from your infirmity.'" Jesus saw a woman who was very, very sick, very ill, and he had compassion on her, moves toward her, and he helps her. The context of this passage is very important to what is actually taking place and who this woman is. If we start in Luke 13 and verse 10, it says, "Now as he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath, and behold, there was a woman who had a spirit of infirmity 18 years, and she was bent over and could in no way raise herself up. But when Jesus saw her, he called her to him and said to her, 'Woman, you are loosed from your infirmity.' And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight and glorified God. But the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath. And he said to the crowd, 'There are 6 days on which men ought to work. Therefore come and be healed on them, and not on the Sabbath day.' The Lord then answered him and said, 'Hypocrite, does not each one of you on the Sabbath loose his ox or donkey from the stall and lead it away to water it? So ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has bound, think of it, for 18 years, be loosed from this bond on the Sabbath?' And when he had said these things, all of his adversaries were put to shame, and all the multitude rejoiced for all of the glorious things that were done by him." Jesus is teaching in a synagogue here in Luke chapter 13. And as he's teaching and giving God's instruction to the people who have come to listen, there's a woman there, as we've noted, who's plagued with a spirit of infirmity for 18 years. Luke tells us that she was bent over and could in no way lift herself up. And I want to start just by saying Jesus saw her. How many other people had seen her, knowing of her infirmity? 18 years, bent over. He says to her, "Woman, you are loosed from your infirmity." He laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight, and she glorified God. And I imagine she did. 18 years. This is a Jewish woman who's been coming to the synagogue for 18 years in her current state, being bent over or double bent. It's interesting to see the faith of this woman. We know very little about her, but we can sure tell that she is a woman of faith, and she believes in God. She is very much in pain. She is double bent. Her head is down around her feet. And how does she walk? How does she move around? It must be very difficult. And yet, on the Sabbath, she knows that she can be in the synagogue to praise and to worship God. And so she is. How many times did she come on the Sabbath day to that synagogue and find no relief from God? How many times did she make her way there, worship as she should, and then make her way home with nothing changed? Jesus knows all of this, and he sees her in her condition. He walks over to her, and he says, "You are loosed from your infirmity." It is such an amazing moment in time. She's bound, and she's still coming to worship God on the Sabbath. Too many times when we're thinking about attending services on Sunday, we say to ourselves, I don't feel that well. I've got a little bit of a headache. I have a sore throat. Maybe there's a slight issue with my car. We find reasons not to go. And this woman is a rebuke to all of us. Her head is by her feet. She cannot lift herself up. And she is found in the synagogue on the Sabbath day. Jesus calls her a daughter of Abraham. She is an amazing person. And what else is going on, when she comes? She's not just attending services, not feeling well. People know her. 18 years in the same position. They know who she is. I'm sure half of them stare at her, shake their head, wonder how or why she's stuck that way. Others are embarrassed and they look away. They won't even look at her because she's not like them. She can't lift herself up. When she walks to the synagogue, what does she do with her hair? Does her hair drag through the dirt as she makes her way to the synagogue to worship the Lord? Is it tied up or bound up? Has she just given up and shaved it off? because of the challenges that would present, stepping on her own hair. What would it be like for her, for 18 years, to get dressed every morning, to prepare yourself to go out? What's that like? How about coming home and finishing the day and realizing that it's time to get ready for bed? How long does that take? How hard is that? She has been plagued for 18 years. I can only imagine how hard eating would be, to put food into your mouth that close to the ground. How often she would drop her own food right into the dirt because she would be eating upside down for 18 years. And I'm just drawing all this out because I want all of you to think with me about Jesus. We're told that Jesus sees her. He knows who she is. He knows what she's been through because he says to the ruler of the synagogue, think of it. For 18 years, she's been bound by Satan. So he already knows. He knows that she's bound. He knows how long she's been bound. And he just simply says that Jesus saw her. And I want us to take that to ourselves. Jesus sees you too. Jesus sees me. If I'm plagued or I'm bound or there's issues in my life and I'm going through something very difficult, Jesus sees me. I have to know that. I need to have confidence in that. It is very encouraging to know that the creator of the world sees me. He knows my condition, and he knows what I need. He comes to her so that we can all watch with our own eyes. And he says, woman, you are loosed from your infirmity. Immediately she was made straight. Luke, the beloved physician, uses the word loosed, which in the Hebrew means unbound. It means to unravel, specifically to unwrap a bandage. She has been wrapped up and bound in a double bent position for 18 years, and Jesus tells us that Satan gets the credit for that. And in this moment, after he speaks to her and puts his hands on her, she stands up straight and glorifies God. What would the walk home be like for her after 18 years? What would it be like for her to walk home and seeing people eye to eye? Would her attitude change about that particular day? The blessings that she would enjoy, even being able to see and meet people, make that eye contact that she so longed for, and to be able to say, hello, how are you doing? How's your day? And to really mean it from the bottom of her heart. Jesus has cured her of her ailment, and now she stands up and does what only she could do, which is glorify God. We've also read together that there's somebody in this group who is not happy about it. Can you imagine that? The ruler of the synagogue is upset. He says to the crowd, and by the way, he speaks to the crowd because he's a coward. He should have addressed Jesus if he wanted to get to the bottom of this. He says to the crowd, there are 6 days when men ought to work, so come and be healed on those days. Oh, how about that? There are 6 days in which men ought to work, and so that's implying that Jesus clearly did a work, and he's not allowed to do that on the Sabbath. So come on the 6 days when men can work, and then he'll heal. Who is this guy? He's not in charge. He doesn't tell Jesus what to do. He's never healed anybody. Can you imagine the condition of this man's heart to yell out to the crowd after a marvelous miracle had just taken place? He should be in tears. He should be on his knees wondering what great things have happened in the very synagogue where he works and lives. And instead, he's rebuking the people because the Sabbath has been broken. And let me just say to you as well, Jesus hasn't done any work. Helping us, unbinding us from our iniquity and from our pain is not work to the Lord. It is a joy to him. The way this man identifies what Jesus has done is all wrong. It is not work for Jesus. It brings him great joy to set her free from bondage. And please understand that it brings him great joy to set us free from our bondage as well. That's why these things are here for us to read. The Lord deals with this man, though he was yelling at the crowd. He said to him, hypocrite, does not each one of you on the Sabbath loose his ox or donkey from the stall and lead it away to water? Again, Jesus knows everyone here. He knows what they do. He knows who they are. He knows where they live. Does not each one of you, imagine these men standing there watching him and seeing this debate go on, and they realize, oh man, yeah, that's me. I did it. I did it last week. Which one of you has not done this? And then he says, so, since you're guilty, brethren, ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, not an ox or a donkey, the daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has bound? Think of it. For 18 years. Ought not this woman be loosed from this bond on the Sabbath? And when he said these things, all of his adversaries were put to shame, and all the multitude rejoiced for all the glorious things that were done by him. I'd like to use this last minute just to ask each one of us, including myself, who am I in this scene? The Bible helps us with that as well. Am I double bent? Am I crippled and bound by iniquity, a sin that is still haunting me in my life, that I'm challenged by, that I'm trying my best to break free from? It says she was unable to stand upright. And sometimes we are so conquered by the evil that's in our lives that we are double bent and can no way raise ourselves up. Jesus sees us. He can help. He wants to help. Go to him. Follow him. Love him as you should. It could be there are other people in this situation. Maybe you're like Jesus, and you're that one who uses the things that God has given you to be a blessing to others. That would be a beautiful thing, helping others to be set free from their sin, to stand in, to say something encouraging, to be kind, and to say, I know where you've been. I've seen this before. I know how to help. Give them that beautiful passage that has meant so much to you in your life. Maybe you're just like Jesus in that way, and I pray that you are. Or are you kind of more like the synagogue ruler, bitter, hypocritical in your judgment of others and of what God may be doing in their lives? This man, as I said before, he should have been in tears when he saw this woman was finally set free. And instead, he yells at the crowd and rebukes them. Please understand, Jesus sees you and he wants to set you free. And so our verse for the day, the encouraging word, is Luke chapter 13 in verse 12. But when Jesus saw her, he called her to him and said to her, "Woman, you are loosed from your infirmity."